Mm.
Right, just letting people know we're now live on YouTube.
Okay.
Cool. The lyrics aren't there. We'll have to get them written.
That's in the session launch page.
Great.
And I'll chuck up on Facebook too, I think.
Yep.
Rightio. Yeah, so just when it gets to midday for you guys, I think we're all good to go. We're still waiting on the Auslan person, and David hasn't come on yet, has he? Anyway.
Check with Dario the spelling of your last name, because on the Zoom there it's different than on the website.
Vacirca.
Okay, so there's an extra C in there. That's not website. All right, I'll go and correct that. And do you want to put Lucy's name with your name as well on the screen name?
Oh yeah, on the screen name. That's a good idea. Yeah. So let's do that.
You can do quite a lot of words there.
Rename. Yeah, I've got it.
Thanks, Lachlan, for spotting all that. Okay, I'll go and correct that.
Just do Lucy and Dario so you can see it.
Has he maybe, would it work better to have the video right at the end as the lead onto the, do you reckon, or leave it at the front?
Both.
Yeah.
Play it at the end again?
I reckon the front because it's a vibe, you know?
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, okay, cool.
David Pledger, iMessage. What's up, David? Can you email the Zoom link, please? We did, but yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. This is, I'm Dario.
I'm Lucy.
And we're calling in from Bunwarang Wurundjeri country in the Kulin Nations. Pay our respects to Sorry Day today. I'd like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded in this land, always was, always will be Aboriginal country and Aboriginal land. Hello, David.
Hello there, how are you?
Good. So we're joined today by Mel Ray, David Pledger, and a host of other awesome people that are making this work. And we're just going to throw now to a little video sting that's been made.
I might just do some quick housekeeping
Oh, yeah,
first.
sorry about that. Go for that.
Sorry, let me just So today's little lunch will be on for about 30 minutes. It's being recorded and streamed live. So it will be available for viewing afterwards at llol.com.au. So if everyone could please keep their mic muted when you're not speaking. You're invited to introduce yourself in the Zoom chat and say whose country that you're on today. And you can use that chat to ask any questions that you want throughout the little lunch. And then click on the captions button to turn the live closed captioning on. And there's also live Auslan signing. So you just need to click on that video to pin it. So that's pretty much all of the housekeeping. So we're just going to throw to our video now quickly, and then I think we'll go straight to Mel.
Get that buddy out of Oxford, talking shop and taking stock and bump your way up to the top. Get your head down, ass up, back straight. Keep your mind on the job. Head down, ass up, back straight. Tighten your belt to the job. What? Keep everything you got. To the job. What? Keep everything you got. To the job. What? Keep everything you got. To the job. What? Keep everything you got.
So yes, we're co-convening a symposium this Thursday, which you should all know about hopefully by now. And we're really blessed to be working with some amazing artists and agitators from across Australia. One of the performers who'll be working with us is Mel Ray, and we're going to throw to her now for a little wee performance.
Hello, everybody. I would like to pay my respects to the Darug people of the Eora Nations on whose lands I have the privilege of existing. Those of us who are not First Nations live, work, and play on stolen land, born of genocide. Sovereignty was never ceded. I'd like to pay my respects to the stolen generations, to all of those who had to live alone without their beloveds because of greed and capitalism. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. On a dark and cloudy Redfern pavement, beneath Sydney's cement sky, a slouch drunk sways delirious, sidewalk threatening to crack skull open like a shivering window at the mercy of flying debris. A voice in us begs, stop, help him. Instead, we shuffle past in radio silence, try to transmit hope with a sorry side glance. Out skies, ash falls, a solemn salute to our polluting ignorance. Winds spread flames like disease carried on wings of volcanic spray. We are reminded we are wafer weak, crushable. Deaths are mounting, mounted on the shoulders of our most vulnerable. In promise, they will drown silently. Not a wave's chance they will float, nor justice. Here, beneath the bubbling tar, an incessant city clamoring like zombies ravenous for the last living corpse. Here, under metropolitan railway tracks like monumental razor blades at the throat of Indigenous land rights, we gather, the artists and the allies, huddled like starving wolves escaping harsh winter storms. In a world that hangs constitutional laws as political ropes around our necks, in a society that glorifies toxic predators in the name of sport and white privilege, we gather like gospel choirs swelling melodious hope for the living dead. We assemble a battlefield of emotions, surrendering all at once to say, I have no more fight today. I just want to be held and here on the outskirts of the mainstream. We are dreaming awake. We who refuse to turn dreams to wrenches, who will not surrender our humanity to the mechanical gluttony of capitalism. We are gathered to witness the holy sanctuary of art. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Wow,
Mel.
amazing.
That
That was the whole conversation done in a poem. That's the power of art.
Great. So we're really excited to have Mel joining us on Thursday in the studio. That was just kind of I guess a last minute surprise, really. So
yeah,
we're excited to be doing that. I guess before we jump into full conversation, we might just kind of introduce the project a little bit and some of the ideas that we're kind of keen to talk about. So the symposium's called Artist-Led Economy, but the word artist has an asterisk, I guess, because we are kind of thinking about what an artist is and what an artist kind of maybe does in for us or for everybody, and we are thinking about it in a more of an expanded way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Or just that it expands into, this is about creative practice. This is about, the thing that actually makes us human, the thing that then reminds us of the others that aren't human as well, and what that relationship is. That art for us is about, it's about time, and it's about living, it's about experience, and understanding relationality, and this kind of like epistemologies of knowledge which have just got lost over time. And totally and utterly kind of defeated through capitalism, as you totally nailed, Mel Ray, and our relationship to private property and notions of nation and all these other kind of crazy ideas that we have about our identities tied to jobs. Yeah. But work is more than that.
Work is so much more than that. And I feel like the ideas around universal basic income are things that we've been talking about for a long time, but this project is very much kind of born out of this period of isolation that we've been through. And, I guess it started with this feeling of, what is productivity? How can we be productive when we're not being productive? And then, the provocation that a living wage or a basic income enables people to engage with their creativity and actual kind of the work that we do every day through our creativity, through our care work that we do amongst each other, the things that people kind of really do enjoy. That's the work that people do.
Yeah, the stuff which is generally undervalued in our social systems and is kind of more thought of as, people will just do that in their spare time. It's like, what spare time? You've taken all of our time, and there's a bunch of intrinsically motivated people out there like ourselves, who just know we're going to get up and do things and work with other people and bring other people back into that kind of understanding of themselves as well, which I guess has been lost through participation in a really kind of demented social order. And, as Lucy was saying, the kind of genesis of this, has been the idea of universal basic income is a 500-year-old concept. It's not a new thing. But, for us, this has been a kind of slow birth over the last probably 6 or 7 years. And in fact, David Pledger, his amazing platform paper written in 2013 really pushed some ideas into me that just made me expand my research into actually what is it that we do and how are we undervaluing artists and how can we revalue that? So it's really kind of major kind of birthing point for this kind of research and practice, as well as other artists like Rebecca Conroy, who has been writing about artist-led economies and is running a Marrickville School of Economics at the moment, which is educating artists about how to unfuck the economic system. So maybe it's a good time to bring David in now and hear from you, David, about where you're at the moment with this research and more to the point actions that are associated to living wage and revaluing the artist in the New World Order, as you wrote about so long ago now, but which is so freaking prescient.
Thanks, Darian, Lucy, and thanks everybody. Thanks Mel for that awesome poem. I actually have a really strong memory of watching Parliament on the day that the apology came through, and I remember being with my kids and kind of trying to explain to them. They were pretty young then, just trying to explain to them the significance of what was going on, and I'm still moved today from when I think about that event. So I'd like to pay my respects. So universal basic income's it's a kind of a strange animal in a way for people inside the arts, because actually it's a very very practical way of configuring equality and justice in society. And I think probably over the last sort of 10 to 15 years, let's say equity and justice has been absent in the arts sector for quite a while if you're looking through a financial prism. And so we are now in a stage now where the levels of precarity for Australia's artist population at a very, very high level, meaning that artists are living at a most precarious level of existence. There's a really great book called The New Precariat. I think it's called The New Precariat by a guy called Guy Standing. And he talks about how there's a new class that is emerging in the global economy particularly around mobility and migrant workers, and also in that space, the large asylum seeker population. And he talks about if you're a member of the precariat, then you are a supplicant. You are asking favours from a parent or an employer or a bureaucrat. And I think that really describes the condition of the artist at the moment. We are very much supplicants. We're at the end of a food chain. And in some respects, I think that the artists have actually been hived off from the arts sector. So in fact, there's been a sort of a cleave that, that now there are no longer artists in the arts sector. And you can look at that in terms of the way in which, I think the National Arts Agency, Australia Council, is a really good place to look for these things because it's both symbolic and it's practical. And the kind of recent, resilience fund basically is 1/37th of the Australia Council's total budget that was available for artists in the time of a global pandemic, which suggests that artists are an afterthought. And so most conversations I have with people behind doors are about the art sector and the system that governs it is broken. Most people prefer not to say that publicly, but I think it's incredibly important to be honest and say where we're at. So the system's broken as far as I'm concerned, according to my, as far as my analysis goes, looking at statistics, looking at the way people are behaving, how they're feeling. I think that's very important that you kind of talk about affect in this space. There is a real issue for artists in terms of how they kind of organise their own identity in this space, and that they are now working in a system that's broken. So the alternative, so what are the issues? So what are the possibilities? It can't be solved within the sector because of the way in which the sector is quite insular, it's quite insulated. The conversations it tends to have are very much with itself. It's very silo-based. It's not the only social sector that operates in a silo. So I'm not saying it's exceptional, but it's most extreme in the arts. So if it can't be resolved within the sector, if there can't be a redistribution of funds within the sector, then what must we do? We must look outside of the sector. And essentially my argument has been that external forces are going to be the ones that actually make that happen for artists. And those external forces are things like a global pandemic or climate change. So all of the conditions that I've described actually are pre-existing the pandemic. The pandemic has just exposed those conditions. So the issue is, what do we do with a universal basic? Why have a universal basic income? Because it can accommodate and mitigate many of the circumstances that artists live in their daily life. And so that's one of the reasons why not only is it kind of, I think, becoming more into the mainstream of arts and cultural conversations, but certainly more into the mainstream of economic conversations globally.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think it's, you know, we're in that Overton window at the moment. We have an opportunity really where people are asking, what else can we do? This system doesn't work. And it, as you said, it's not just the arts sector. This is cross-sectoral. And the conversations that we're having now need to be also cross-sectoral. And that starts obviously with us in ourselves, because there's so many splintered kind of factions within inside of the arts. And I think, as Mel pointed out perfectly in her poem, on the outskirts of the mainstream, we are dreaming awake. Now, absolutely, we are on the outskirts of the mainstream, and we can do that dreaming and speak really loudly because there's so many of us. And I feel like that's kind of where we're going to right now. And if we can really kind of be, I guess, to coin a phrase right now, the arts front for basic income, we can then join in with multiple other sectors that are also having these conversations and actually prove that artists, you know, we actually do things beyond just fucking dance and, you know, make things look pretty for consuming. You know, this is a big point. It's like, how do we show, and, you know, people like yourself do this, and Van Badham and other artists that are in the conversation in the media, but generally, you know, politicians in the media, that kind of laugh us off. Why is that? Because we are supplicants, right? We're not, as you've said before, David, we're not acting as protagonists. And we can, and we have. And look at what happened to the National Day of Action against Brandis's Arts. And, you know, that was a call from the coalition of independents. We called ourselves the protagonists. Then NAVA came on, then MCA came on, and then everybody erupted into action on the day. And it's good. We're at a good point. And I think I'd like to hear from Mel, maybe if you can, maybe just expand on that idea, you know, like, what does that mean to you in relation to being on the outskirts and having that conversation? And do you find resistance even amongst, you know, your peers to kind of be politically active?
Absolutely. You know, the communities that I love the most and am a part of, the colored community, the queer community, the arts community, I often just feel so powerless because so many of us are not politically inclined. And as I'm becoming more of a woman and I'm understanding more about the world, I say to myself all the time and to the people around me, when are we going to have our Barack Obama? You know, but not even like, when are we going to have somebody who is passionate, who's conscious, who is creative, who's going to be in one of those positions in our society where they are part of that little pool that are making all the decisions. And I feel like events like this, the awareness like this, we're creating a womb. You know, the young people are amazing. When you talk to 13, 14, 15-year-olds about equality and their ideologies, people have done the hard work for them. And so they get to breed in this nourishing ground. And I feel like all of this work you guys are doing and all the work that's been done, we're nourishing this, and the womb is ripening, and soon some powerful artist is going to pop through, and hopefully heaps of them, and hopefully that's just my positive thinking. You know, that's what I believe, and that's what I need to believe to be able to wake up every day and survive in this world that doesn't really see me as a Black woman artist.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, we're kind of running out of time, but it's interesting to think about, you know, the idea of the artist as ... the artist as mother, the artist as supermarket worker, the artist as lawyer, the artist as, you know, the artist is never just the artist. The artist is so much more than that. And that's why I think that, you know, this conversation, the arts often just silos itself off in its own exceptionalism, and it's not really the artists that necessarily do that. It's kind of industry and capitalism, I suppose. It's the cultural industries. And that's definitely something that we're going to be kind of expanding on and talking about and reframing on Thursday. I'm just aware of time now. And I thought that we could jump into some questions. So we've got a question here from Melissa, and I think that this is actually a good question to direct to David. So are there any models in the world where an artist wage works, and how could it work? Did you want to speak about that briefly?
Yeah, there are. Could I just pick up one thing that Mel reminded me of? There's a great phrase that says, "We are the leaders we've been waiting for."
Yes.
And that's the people here on the call. It's our task. It's our job. We have the capacity. We shouldn't let anybody else tell us that we don't. Belgium's a great model. The French, and I'll come back. Probably the best is the French, and it's called the l'intermittent du spectacle, which is basically the intermission of shows. And it's been around since the early 30s, and it really came into its own in the 60s. And it's a really incredible model because basically it works like this. You get a contract, and the contract lasts for 3 months. After the end of that contract, for the first 3 months, you're on 75% of that. For the next 3 months, you're on 40% of that. And on the next 6 months after that, if you haven't got another job, then you're on a sort of a basic living wage. So I'm not exactly sure about the percentages, but it goes down across time. So that works incredibly well. In Belgium, you have to get 1,000 hours of professional practice to qualify for effectively what is a stipend that allows you to continue to practice without receiving any income. And it's all these systems are based around taxation systems. So it's pretty much what you submit in your tax, and when you fill out a form, it's basically all the calculations are done for you. There's been plenty of other great models around, splitting up funding, which is, in Brazil, for example, Rio de Janeiro, about 4 or 5 years ago. They don't have it anymore, but they basically split arts funding into commercial and not-for-profit. So half the budget was for commercial and half the budget was for not-for-profit. If you got not-for-profit, you didn't have to quit your grant. So it's just basically a public good. If it was commercial, you had a whole different set of acquittal processes that you had to go through. So there are plenty of models out there that we can look to, that we can try out, and that Australia is really, really ripe for.
Great, thanks for that, David. Now, we've probably got time for maybe 2 more questions. I'm going to direct this question to you, Dario. It's from Bong Ramillo. So doesn't the idea of a universal basic income lead to a change in thinking and language about artists and the art sector? Doesn't it allow to make and share art if they choose?
Doesn't allow everyone to make and share art if they choose.
Yeah.
Yes. The simple answer is yes, it does. And I think that, we're yet to kind of be able to do the analysis and, data around what that might look like. But I think we can imagine the possibilities. In fact, if, everybody that had their security taken care of, had their food taken care of, had their rent taken care of, what that would actually do to people's choices. The choice to say, no, I'm not going to ride that bike and deliver your, Uber food because I don't have to. I'm actually going to go home and I'm going to spend some time with my kid, and we're going to design a solar system that we're going to put on the wall. And that's just today. And then, the next day, what does it look like? I'm going to learn a bit more about permaculture. I'm going to start to grow my own food. Maybe, we start looking at how systems become circular and how they then interconnect with other systems. I feel like that is the potentiality. And to me, that's what the artist looks like in the future. This is really about kind of redefining and reframing. I mean, all of us come from, the last, decades of what the arts industry is. And we've all produced amazing content, right? And we've all failed as well. Like, I'm not saying that we need to destroy our institutions, right? And our companies and the way that we work together. All of that still happens. That's still learning that we've gained over many, many years. But yeah, a lot of people are cut out of that. And, community arts practice, socially engaged practice, and other forms of, politically and community oriented projects that we've known for the last 20, 30, 40 years around the world, and especially in Australia, it's very profound, the effect that it has on and with people. And it's interesting though, because even in the arts, if you're funded to do a community arts project, historically speaking, you can't pay community members. And it's like, that's right, the money's going to go to artists, which is good because, you know, artists hardly ever get money, but that in itself is problematic. So yeah, it's a really, really good opportunity. And I just want to say, because probably last time I get to speak, I just wanted to edge on what Mel was saying before, and this kind of idea that, you know, yes, we need our Obama, but not really, because, you know, hope, you know, dies, but action begins, right? So we need action more than we need hope. We need a belief that there's something else. And that's something that we can build up as artists as well. We are workers of the imagination, and we also know how to act.
Yeah. I just want to respond to something that Vivian just popped into the chat quickly before we wrap up, which was it would free a lot of people who currently don't feel that they can afford to be creative. And I think this is a really important point, and I just want to acknowledge that to be an artist in Australia, or to be like a capital A artist, I guess, is it's a privilege, and it's a privilege that a lot of people don't have access to. Who gets to be an artist, who gets to spend time going to study art at university, and then who has access to that time post-university to be able to have a practice. It's a huge privilege, and I just want to acknowledge that. I feel really grateful that I have had that privilege.
Absolutely.
And I think on that note, unfortunately, it's time.
We've got 2 more minutes,
Yeah.
so before we throw to the video again, anybody want to say anything else? Go to town.
You can just shout out if you want.
Talk over the top of each other.
I'm good.
Everybody get ready for Thursday when David's going to really, you know, tell us the truth. And,
I better write that down then.
Mel, did you want to add
I'll
anything else?
quickly ask a question if that's all right.
Yeah.
I completely see what you guys are saying, and I agree. I kind of went off on a tangent because obviously, you know, art is now, we're live and now, we can only do as much as we can do. However, I want to ask you, on a grand scale, what is the actual reality? How long and what could actually happen if there isn't like a huge representation within that structure?
Yeah, cooperation, you know, universal cooperation, and, you know, a cosmopolitan system of relationships between groups of people, i.e., you know, this expands and extends beyond, you know, the conversation we're just having about what this does for individuals. This really, for me, changes the very fabric of how we understand our polity. So I guess
I love that. Thank you. And you know what? I actually really needed to hear that because I have been feeling quite alone as an artist. You know, it's easy to feel like that, but even just connecting now, and I already feel so hopeful. So you're right. You're right. If we believe it and we spread that message and that vibration, it will happen because we're all human after all, aren't we? We all have humanity inherent within us. So thank you.
Totally. Absolutely. Norm, can you throw to the video again on our way out? Thank you, everybody, for participating today, and see you all on Thursday.
Ciao.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Get that body out of Oxford, talking shop.
Get your head down, ass up, back straight. Do the job.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you. That's great.
Cheers. See you
Cheers.
Thursday.